Hey ladies, welcome back to the Girl Boss Method. Okay, tonight's call is all about intermittent fasting. Should you try it? The truth about intermittent fasting for fat loss and health, because this is a big one that's I find myself I speak to a lot of women over the course of the week, in the days, etc. And this intermittent fasting props up a lot. And again, I don't know if it's just because it's every now and then it just does the rounds, or it seems like the easy hack or the easy go-to. You think, okay, let me apply a fast. I'll just do eat between these hours. Magic will happen, and that's it. But I'm going to talk to you about a few different things. I'm going to talk to you about what intermittent fasting is, why someone might do it, and of course, thinking about some of the stuff that you might have heard from your friends and they've had success as well. So, firstly, intermittent fasting is an eating pattern and it's not a diet. It focuses on an eating schedule, basically. And the idea is to restrict your eating to certain hours of the day. And rather than kind of thinking about, eating whenever you feel like. So, yeah, again, it doesn't focus on what you eat either. So it works by cycling between sort of fasting and eating windows. So we're going to come into that as well now. So, firstly, why would anyone try intermittent fasting? Because they have this belief that it's going to create fat loss and it's going to create calorie control. They've heard stuff about blood sugar levels and insulin regulation, that it's better for that. They've heard stuff about better digestion and gut health. Some people report having mental clarity and energy during fasting as well. And again, it can be something that is purely down to lifestyle convenience. So we'll explore some of these statements soon as well. So you can categorize intermittent fasting into four areas. You've got something called a 16-8, which is the most common type of fasting. That's the one that people typically understand and they know. You do a 16-hour fast and then you eat for 8 hours. And the easy way of doing this would be 12 o'clock, you break your fast, you start eating, and then you stop eating at 8 p.m. And then it's the evening. You don't really care about the evening. Go to bed, you wake up, you fast during the morning, and you hit go again at midday. And then you've got this one called the 5-2 diet. This is an interesting one. I feel like I've heard, I've never come across anyone that's worked directly with me asking or having experienced the 5-2 diet. It's not so popularized, not as much as the 16-8, but it seems to be more common in the older population. Again, I don't know if that's just to do with trends. But the 5-2 is you eat normally for 5 days and then you restrict 500 to 600 calories on 2 other days. And again, yeah, it's quite difficult because you are having to drop calories quite low there. We've got this alternate day fasting as well. We'll come on to that in a moment. And then you've got 24-hour fasting. So yeah, let's break it down. Okay. 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. So let's say 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. is when you're going to eat. This can be quite good for, structured eating and people that inherently skip breakfast. We'll come across, again, some difficulties that might arise from breakfast skippers. Typically, what's the first thing that they're going to put in their mouth at 12 o'clock? Is it going to be a satisfying meal or is it going to be snacky and picky stuff? And then you've got the 5-2 method. Again, they eat normally for 5 days, 500 to 600 calories on the other days. This is hard to sustain. And again, it could be something where if you are not actually tracking, or you don't understand how to eat at maintenance, maybe you believe that you're eating at maintenance, you might end up overeating on those days, thus taking yourself out of any energy deficit. That's the whole purpose of any diet or lifestyle or any type of eating that is trying to elicit fat loss and weight loss. The idea is to create an energy deficit. So if you're eating 500 calories a day for 2 days a week, you might sort of manage that quite well. 500 calories. I mean, not, I say quite well, but I mean, you might go prescriptively 500 calories. That's one meal. You're going to eat one meal on either of those days. The risk with this is because of that energy deficit, a huge energy deficit. You're looking at, for some people that might be 1,500 calories to 2,000 calories short of what their demands are. Again, we're all individuals with individual needs for movement as well. When you are eating so low, you've got the risk of moving less, so decreasing your energy output, slowing your movements down. So if I was in an energy deficit, I wouldn't really naturally move around and move my hands. I might sort of close myself off and sit still and sort of try and preserve or conserve energy. And then obviously you've got the risk of, on the other days that you eat normally for 5 days, the idea that you'd be eating at your maintenance again. So let's say, for example, your maintenance is at 2,000 calories or 2,200. You'd eat at that for those 5 days. But then if you're not tracking, how do we know that you're eating at, a normal or maintenance? So there's lots of things to kind of think about here. And again, I think the biggest issue here is the tendency to overeat when you have been in such a harsh deficit the day before. Then you've got alternate day fasting. You eat normally for one day and then you fast or eat very little the next day. Again, similar to 5-2, but more aggressive. This is not ideal for training or busy lifestyles. This is pretty much falling into the realm of disordered eating. And I don't know anyone that sort of goes and trains and is trying to build muscle that does things this way. Is crazy. And then again, if you're busy, how can you operate? How can you operate on those busy days, those lifestyles? If you've got children to look after and you've got lots of pressures at work and stuff. So it's not easy. And then we're looking at the really extreme fasting. So the 1 to 2 days of full fast per month, again, this is just something that I've come across. It's generally, people will call these like spiritual fasts or perhaps maybe religious fasts. Maybe they're doing it for charitable reasons. Yeah, this goes on. Okay. So if we think about, that first slide that we talked about when we sort of looked at why people do it, and now we kind of look more about the science behind intermittent fasting. Well, what are the actual benefits? So when we're thinking about fat loss and calorie control, well, skipping meals is naturally going to reduce your intake. You're going to be having less if you're, let's say that you're habitually quite a normal eater, you maintain weight really well, and your energy demands don't vary vastly throughout the week or what have you. You're generally quite stable. If you were to remove breakfast, or if you were to do again 16-8 doesn't have to be 12 to 8. Maybe you do it the other way around. Maybe you have a large breakfast, a large lunch, and then you skip dinner. That's common for people to do as well. It's naturally you're going to be reducing that intake. And then the blood sugar regulation. So with the intermittent fasting, the reason why it might help insulin sensitivity, just want to check that you girls can see me still. The reason why it might help insulin sensitivity is if we think about the job and the role of insulin after you have a meal is to spike. to get rid of the blood glucose sitting, again, to push that into the cells, the muscle cells or fat cells or wherever, to push it out and to remove it. So we are going to have these natural spikes after eating that will drop and come down because insulin's job is to kick the blood sugar or the glucose out the way. Now, obviously there are issues when people keep these elevated for too long because they'll have a meal and then they just keep eating. So all they're doing is just keeping elevated blood sugar levels. And obviously that's where we have this issue sometimes. Again, there are so many different theories or ways that people have struggles when it comes to like insulin sensitivity or resistance, etc. Or maybe, again, with blood sugar levels staying high. There's so many different reasons that could be happening. But I think the idea is that, again, if you're constantly eating and you're just constantly forcing the body to, forcing the body to digest and to have to convert this energy into glucose that can be used. Well, if it's got nowhere to go, it's just going to be circulating around your body, which again kind of brings me on to the next point, is that if you've got this elevated, energy within your bloodstream, again, is your gut having a chance to rest? Again, could this be more reasons for why bloating occurs and why people have a perceived improved digestion because the gut is resting and your body isn't having to try and work to sort of do something with this energy and this food. Again, mental clarity and energy sort of coming down here as well. When you're fasting, again, when you've had food, if it's carbs that you've been eating, or nothing wrong with carbs, girls, but if it's whatever it is that you've been eating and you get that sluggish feeling, right? You get that really sluggish feeling after having a heavy meal. It's because your body's having to do work to sort of disperse all this stuff. So again, it's coming again to this other thing called autophagy. I was trying to say it in the right way, autophagy and cellular repair. So again, this is more about the promotion of like cleaning up damaged cells or old cells, or just again, it's going to help promote that sort of repair during those longer fasts as well. This might be something that again you're advised by doctors or sort of specialist clinicians and stuff. Again, depending on if you are managing any particular health concerns. But I think it's just important to realize again when we kind of tie in the blood sugar regulation, improved digestion, and mental clarity and energy. If you are constantly going, I'm going to eat and I'm just going to keep eating, you're never going to be at a point where you just allow your blood sugar levels to drop and have that effect of nothing. And again, this is when people do fasting, they create that opportunity. And is that why they suddenly start feeling better? So the reality is working out if intermittent fasting actually works. And it does work if you do this. So it can be great if you adhere to a calorie deficit in order to lose fat. You think about your quality of food as well. You're not just sort of binging on junk, and you are prioritizing strength and protein to help muscle retention. So if you are going through periods of fasting and you're just going, I'm going to eat this much food, I'll have just 2 meals, and you're not quantifying what you're having within those meals, you don't know if you're eating or satisfying normal demands for protein intake, for example, let alone the additional demands of strength training or resistance training. Yeah. And then what will happen is if you are in that sort of deficit, you won't be burning fat, you'll be burning muscle tissue. And so that's why the word muscle retention is so important. When we are in a calorie deficit, it does not equal fat loss. It's not just that. That's why it's really important that we prioritize muscle or protein, is because we want to try and retain as much muscle as possible while we're in that deficit. So it's really, really important. So you're not just going, I'm just eating carbohydrates and fats and minuscule protein. Well, you're just going to start eating into that muscle, and that's not what we want. Okay. So, yeah, just to kind of clarify, intermittent fasting only works if you are in a calorie deficit. You can't just eat unlimited food during your window and your eating window and expect results. So, again, you might be doing 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., but you might be just spending the whole time eating. How do we know how much food you're eating? Are you having 1,500 calories? Are you having 2,000 calories? Are you having 2,500 calories? You've no idea. So it really does matter in terms of understanding what your energy intake is. And again, when it comes to food quality, this still matters. So, yes, we need to satisfy protein demands, but we also need to make sure that we are fulfilling fiber demands. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with your actually digesting food, right? So, again, maybe even feeling satisfied, the fiber just helps create that bulk as well to food. So again, if you're only having 2 meals, are you hitting 25 grams to 30 grams of fiber a day, or are you only getting like 6 grams because you're only eating two small meals a day? So it's really important to kind of consider that. And then also looking at the quality of the food. Are you just eating for the sake of eating, or are you trying to focus on some whole foods there as well within this? So this is why that balanced approach always works. And yeah, when we are thinking about muscle retention, if you want to keep muscle and actually look toned, your strength training and your protein are absolute non negotiables. So, who should avoid fasting? I'll let you have a quick read of that. I'm just going to grab some water. So, again, intermittent fasting is not for everyone. If you've got a history of any disordered eating or binge eating, these cycles of stopping having food, they could trigger this sort of recurrence of this pattern that you may have experienced in the past. So if we are not thinking about at a baseline and then creating a deficit and trying to eat normally within life, and you're just going for intermittent fasting, do you just suddenly start bouncing in between this yo-yo again? And then again, when we are thinking about women with irregular periods, so again, hormonal imbalances, you've got to be cautious about that, because fasting, again, huge energy deficits can affect your menstrual cycle as well. Again, we haven't talked about micronutrients here right now, but micronutrients are really important as well. So we're thinking, again, iron demands as well, magnesium demands. Are you getting what you need in this really small windowed eating? And I'm not putting you off intermittent fasting. I'm just sort of highlighting the things that you need to be cautious of. It's anything that you do, you need to be kind of cautious of, well, why am I doing it? Why should I not do it? And if you are someone who typically struggles with sort of bouts of like low energy, you get dizzy, weak again, it just might be this is not really for you, and it's probably best to be at a point where you know you can eat at a rate that makes you feel more energized again, because we all operate differently, and again, it's really important that you listen to yourself as well. And then yes, highly active individuals who need steady energy. I know you might go again on Instagram and you might see people, maybe influencers and athletes, that swear by it. But again, understanding if they are doing intermittent fasting, have they set up their lifestyles to accommodate a windowed period that suits what they do? So if they have gone for the typical 16/8, are they adapting their training to be around the times of when they're going to when they can eat? So if they're doing 12/8 and they eat at 12, maybe they have a heavy meal at 12 or a light meal at 12. Maybe they get to train at 1 or 2 and it suits them. And again, maybe they're able to eat another meal at like 3 in the afternoon for like a bigger meal. Again, just looking at everything really from a very individualized perspective, it's important to consider that there are always confounding variables when it comes to anything that you do. And yeah, this is just a kind of, again, ladies, we need balance and not chaos. So again, if any of these things have typically affected you in the past, you have to be mindful of that. And again, maybe this approach might not be right for you. So again, some common mistakes. And this is coming back to the friend that you've heard has done intermittent fasting and it did great for her and she did wonderful and it was wonderful for her and she really nailed it and she lost loads of weight. I mean, firstly, it would be good to have that conversation with your friend to find out if they were actually strength training and if they were maybe even meeting their protein demands as well. So some of the common mistakes is thinking that you can eat anything within your windowed period. So again, I can eat anything. I'll eat junk. I won't lose fat because I'm eating in this magical window. Another thing is because you're absolutely starving after fasting because it doesn't suit you, that you end up overcompensating. And then again, if you are on the other end of the spectrum where you just fast so aggressively that yes, you do, let's say you do one of the other types of fast, like the 5-2, you just feel absolutely exhausted. You don't want to move. Your NEAT is adjusted as well. You're going to feel exhausted, irritable. You're going to struggle to focus in your life as well. It's not going to be for you. And again, thinking about that windowed eating, not adjusting it to suit your lifestyle. So if you do go for the 16-8 and you think, I need to have more energy during work, I need to operate in the morning, maybe you get up at like 5 in the morning. It's probably not a good idea that you fast all the way until 12 o'clock. Maybe you train at 7 a.m. Definitely not a good idea to fast 12-8. You would ideally need to jig things around. So if you woke up again, for example, 5 a.m. and you went to the gym at 7 a.m. and you started work at 9 a.m., you would need to make sure that you get maybe you break your fast. You start it at 6. Gosh, that would be really hard. 6 a.m. is when you eat and then you train and then you eat after that and then you have a big breakfast and then you go to work and then you've got to have your like final lunch around 12-1 and then you'd have to fast again around 2 in the afternoon. Bizarre. I mean, yeah, it really does have to kind of fit what you're doing. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so how can you make it work for you? Yeah, pick a fasting window that fits your schedule. Make sure that you are satisfying and you are prioritizing protein, fiber, and balanced meals. Just because you're intermittent fasting doesn't mean that you can sneak off to go and get, KFC meal deal, chicken bucket, whatever it is, at 3 in the afternoon, and you've had your lunch, and then you're going to have your dinner, and you're going to snack on a packet of whatever biscuits or be balanced within this. It's the idea is that it's almost like adding a label to what you do. It doesn't have to be 16-8. Again, it's just typical to what people might do. You maybe for you, you want to make this work for you, and you go, do you know what? I get up at 6 a.m. and I don't train in the morning because I train in the evening. So you might go, okay, go to work. Um, I start work at 8 or 9. Maybe you break your fast at 11 a.m. Maybe you do it 11-7, or maybe you make it a larger window. Maybe you don't do 12-8. Maybe you do, I don't know, 10-10 or 10. Gosh, I can't count right now. So maybe you do it slightly different or structured. Just trying to think about different ways there. But yeah, you just need to be balanced with that. And strength training is really important. Goes without saying, especially ladies as we get older, 30s and upwards, 40s and upwards, 50s and upwards, you need to be strength training. And it's interesting, but as we get older, so as you get towards like 70s, 80s, etc., your protein demands actually increase because you start to lose muscle mass. You actually need to try and feed more protein into your body when you get older to try and stop that muscle from wasting away. So that's really important as well. And again, strength training, protein, they're tying together. Let's try and build as much muscle as we can now. We'll drop the body fat, recomposition, build the muscle, retain the muscle, take these habits and these, again, this way of life into your life as you get older as well, and it will serve you. Stay hydrated as well. So yes, when you are, so some people, okay, let's say intermittent fasting absolutely works for you and you've nailed the process, 12/8, you've got some really good food in there. Let's say you know what your maintenance is. Let's say your maintenance is like 2,100 calories and you've given yourself a 500 calorie deficit and you're eating 1,600 calories. Um, you've absolutely nailed it. Some of the mistakes that people make is that when they go for fluids, they almost don't count them. So I've spoken to people and they're like, "Yeah, I'm fasting." I'm like, "Okay, cool. How's that going for you?" And they're walking along with a latte. I'm like, "That's not fasting. Water, herbal teas, black coffee, no milk. You can't add milk into that. If it's a fast, it's a fast. If you're putting yourself into that box and you're doing it properly and effectively, that's the way you do it. Otherwise, it's not actually a fast. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Lattes and you know Americanos with a bit of milk or some sugar or whatever is not the same. And yeah, train smart. If you are going to do intermittent fasting and you feel like this is going to work for you, let's have that conversation between us and make sure this is flexible and it works for you and it suits you and understand why you think this approach is best for you. But again, don't fast if it's going to affect how you work out. Your workouts are the opportunity for you to prime your mind, to prime your body, to shape and tone your bodies. We are not working out, you know, to create some sort of, yes, there might be some, again, deficit applied, but most of that's going to happen from the way that we eat. And most importantly, the way that we move throughout the day, which is why we have things like stepped targets and stuff and getting up out of your chair and not just saying stagnant and still for, 8 hours of your shift and eating at your desk. You've got to get up. You've got to take, opportunities to get up and move throughout the day. And yeah, if you are going to do it, be flexible and listen to your body. If it happens that you feel like this works and then your period comes along, or you think, crap, I get really hungry around that time and I can't do this and fasting will just make my head go dizzy, don't do it. Listen to your body, have a break. If it means you do intermittent fasting 3 weeks of a month and then you do 1 week of a month where you actually don't fast and you spread out your calories, then yeah, be flexible. Yeah, and again, should you actually try it? Well, if you feel like intermittent fasting can be a useful tool for fat loss, it can be, but it is not magic. And I feel like that's the general misconception is that intermittent fasting is this new thing. It's this wave. It swings, it comes in and out of, the media and social media and stuff every now and then. It becomes an in thing. People love it, people hate it, people try it and again they rave about it or they don't rave about it. Again, it's all down to personal choice, but it's not magic. And again, if you are going to do it, it's going to work best if you actually pair it with a calorie deficit and quality nutrition. So making sure that we are not scrimping on any of our macronutrients, we're satisfying protein needs, fats for healthy hormonal health, carbohydrates for energy levels, fiber for feeling full and helping your digestion. If you are satisfying all of those areas, and then we think about the micronutrients as well. So again, your micronutrients, ensuring that those minuscule things, vitamins and minerals, they are being, you're not at risk of, because you're having such less meals or less food or what have you, that you're now putting yourself at risk of being nutrient deficient there. So yeah, consistency matters. Consistency beats everything. So if intermittent fasting fits your life, go for it. If not, that's fine too. Just find an approach that fits for you. Consistency is going to matter more than the actual fasting window itself. And again, just remember it's not for everyone. And most importantly, listen to your body and let's have that conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode on intermittent fasting. Again, if you've got any questions, ladies, please send them back to me via the group. And if you've stumbled across this episode, you can send me a message on Instagram at Richie Bra, and we will see you here next time.